Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons in the NHL with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And today our special guest is Elaine St. James, the beat writer of the Detroit Free Press and author of a recent book. And it's called, the Top 50 of the Red Wings, which is the leading men and moments of Red Wings history. Is that correct, Helene?
It's called the Big 50, the men and moments that made the Detroit Red Wings. So, yeah, it came out in October and it's doing really, really well. So I'm very, very happy to personalize any copies if people want to shoot me an email at hstjames@freepress.com. So
did Kevin Allen make the book, Helene?
He certainly made it in the acknowledgments for how much fun. It's funny, my Facebook page all this week has been reminding me of how much fun we had now 7 years ago in Sochi. So how time flies. But yes, absolutely. Kevin and I go way, way back a couple of hockey.
Yeah, farther than we either one of us want to admit. That Russian trip was one of the all-time greatest. It's popped up on my Facebook as well, the stray dogs. And in fact, my wife was noting, and I noted as well, that on one of my Facebook notes, there's a stray dog in Russia that I just took a random photo of, and I ended up with a dog that looks like that dog. So it's actually quite amazing and quite coincidental. But Helene, the reason we have you on is I want to talk a little bit about the Red Wings. They're a focal point, I think, of the fan base around the country, even though they're either the worst or second worst team in the league again this season. And I think everyone thought they might make some progress simply because Steve Yzerman did a really good job of making that defense more competitive, but the offense just hasn't gotten the job done. They just had a big win against Florida, but before that, they really had struggled.
Yeah, I think everything that could have gone wrong for them, unfortunately, did. 1 week into the season, they lost 5 players to COVID. 2 of them were Philip Zadina and Robbie Fabry. 2 of their, so essentially it wiped out that second line that looked so good in the little preseason that they had. They really hoped, that, and they lost John Merrill, so Sam Gagne, so a lot of their power play guys, and those guys missed about 2 weeks. They put them back in the lineup as soon as they were cleared, which is a little unusual. They had at most one practice, maybe one morning skate, but it kind of told you how desperate they were. And I think we've seen Fabry already back in game form. Zadina, points are still not there. So I think, and then they lost Jonathan Bernier for a couple of weeks to injury, and he's really, really played well and certainly has outplayed Thomas Greiss. I mean, I don't think goaltending has been the issue overall, but I didn't think Greiss distinguished himself in that blowout loss Friday to Florida. So, it's just the usual thing with them. They've had between the pandemic and injuries, they still don't have enough depth to mask how significant a bite that took out of their lineup for quite a while.
Elaine, being the old defenseman, I'm a huge fan of Mark Stahls when he played here with the Rangers. And he's one of those guys that I think maybe fans get on a little bit because they don't think he's doing anything, but he's that guy that's steady. He's a leader, always seems to make the right play out there. How's he doing with the team? I
think he's done well, and I think he's helped kind of calm them down, if there were any after effects from last season, which does seem 100 years ago, but they had a bad habit last year of, just having these mental breakdowns. They'd give up goals in the last minute or first minute of a game. And they did so, I think it might have been in Nashville, and he came right back and scored a goal. I think he's had a nice calming influence. He's been a really good partner with Troy Stecher, who missed Saturday's game with an injury. But I think he's been, a better addition than people maybe expected. And, still the big thing with that trade was getting a second round pick. It was just kind of, and then Steve also took on Mark Stahl's contract. But he's actually come in and played very nicely. And it wouldn't surprise me if Steve flips him at the trade deadline for a pick. I got to think somebody like Mark Stahl is going to appeal to a contender looking to shore up for a playoff run.
Yeah, I agree.
Helene, the Hockey News recently did a story when they listed 5 players that they thought would benefit by a change of venue. And one of them was Anthony Mantha. And obviously he's off to a slow start this season. And, should the Detroit fan base be alarmed that at this point in his career, he still hasn't developed the consistency you want to see out of out of a top scorer?
Yeah, I was a little gobsmacked. I think it was last month already. We were talking to him on a Zoom call after, and I asked him, what is it that's missing from your game? And he said, as far as consistency, he said, if I knew, I would have the answer with me all the time. And I'm just thinking, like, Anthony, we all know it comes down to whether or not you skate. Like, when he skates, he's unstoppable. He's incredible. And we see it way too rarely, way too inconsistently. I mean, he's 26 now. He got a nice contract in the offseason, 4 years, 5 point something AAV. I mean, he's considered, he's recognized that this is a huge part of their rebuilding block. Now, they probably thought it was going to be in Detroit, but, certainly those trade rumors are popping up for a reason, that maybe it's best at some point to part ways with him if he doesn't start showing up. I mean, there really was a big opportunity for him to step up once Zadina and Fabry went out and, kind of take on more of a leadership role, more of just like putting the team on his shoulders, which are sizable. And he just has not shown it nearly enough, and still not. To me, I had him as one of my trending downwards in my stock watch this morning. I just don't think he's been nearly the player that they need him to be. And, maybe ultimately, I don't know how you fairly assess his trade value. Certainly the potential is there, but other teams have seen him, and it's not like it's just an issue that's come up. It's been a storyline with him really since he came into the league.
Bobby Ryan's an interesting story too. I really admire the guy that's fought back like he has. Is he in the long-term plans for the Red Wings?
Personally, I hope so, because he's a fabulous quote, and I love hearing about his Bobby Ryan reading club when he's on the road.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. Oh. Well, I call it that. I think it might be a club of one, but yeah, he's been reading a lot. Fahrenheit 451, I think, was on his previous trip. So, in Plato's Republic, which, I mean, how many NHL players are reading Plato? So, he had such a great start, 4 goals his first 3 games, and then kind of quieted down. But he's someone, to me, I see him every game. He has at least one chance. He's active around the net. He's doing everything right. We saw him, score this past weekend. So I think he's someone, maybe if he heats up again, somebody Steve flips for a draft pick, but maybe they bring him back. I know Steve really likes him in the locker room as well. I think he's come in and made himself at home right away, like just a really good influence, a really good example. For young guys like Zadina, Bobby was a high round pick. He knows what their expectations are like. So I think he's been an excellent fit, and no risk signing for $1 million.
Yeah. Yep.
Elaine, I was talking to a team executive recently, and we were talking about the Red Wings, and I'd asked him what he thought of what the job that Steve Yzerman's done, and he said he's really liked the draft. And he said, if you look at what Steve had to work with, even though that they had high picks before, because they had bought it out before that he took over. With the exception of Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi, and maybe Hronek, even though he pointed out that seems like Hronek has plateaued this season, that really the Red Wings start over in his mind begins with the Yzerman drafts. And that these, like Lucas Raymond, who they just took, and Seider, before then, he said those are the players that, in my mind, that are going to turn this franchise around. With Bertuzzi, who has established himself, and of course Dylan Larkin, who's the captain. Your thoughts?
It's interesting with both Bertuzzi and Hronek, because they were kind of throw-ins. Bertuzzi was an extra they got in 2013 for trading back to take Mantha at 20th with San Jose, and Hronek was an extra they got in 2016 when they flipped Pavel Datsuk's contract to Arizona. And certainly at this point, Philip Hronek has far outplayed the guy the Wings took at first overall, Dennis Cholowski, in 2016. But, as far as with Steve's draft, and Seider is having a phenomenal season in Sweden. He just came back last week. He had missed a few games with an injury. Lucas Raymond, another guy, Jonathan Berggren, is having a really good season in the SHL. I think we'll see him over here next season. Certainly, I would be shocked if Moritz Seider isn't on the team with the Wings next season. This is now his 3rd year of pro hockey, and he's, really stood out at every level. So I think he's a shoo-in. And I think, Yeah, I mean, and you're also going to see them now. To me, I still think they should not have been pushed back to fourth after how bad they were last season. They weren't tanking. I watched all 71 of those games. They were as bad as their record indicated last season. But I guess that's their bad luck in the draft lottery. They've been pushed back every year now that they've been in it. But I think Steve has made very good draft choices, but I also think he's made very good choices just in trying to bolster the team. There are 1 or 2 year deals in free agency. He's made trades to acquire picks, kind of like Kenny was doing before he went to Edmonton. But Steve has not mortgaged any of the future, and he's made some bold buyouts. I mean, buying out Justin Applicator. He certainly did not have a good season, but to buy out a player when he still had 3 years left, ties you for a while. Now they have plenty of cap space also. So I think Steve has done a very steady job and, made really good signings. I mean, like we talked about earlier, I think Bobby Ryan's been a good signing. Mark Stahl has been a good trade acquisition. Troy Stecher, John Merrill. They've all bolstered the team. They should have a better record. Now their record this year isn't much better than it was last year after 20 games, but their goal differential is much better. So I think you are seeing a much better defensive effort most nights. But absolutely, to go back to your original point, the scoring is not there.
So, Elaine, I've got the conspiracy theory going on, and no disrespect to Blashill, the coach there, but when does Gerard Gallant get hired as the head coach of the Red Wings?
Yeah, that's interesting. I probably field emails daily about Jeff and certainly on Twitter. And, I don't see Steve making a change this season for numerous reasons. I mean, nobody in the organization expected them to be a playoff team. Let's face it, they haven't had any revenue come in for a year now. If you make a coaching change, that costs. There's nobody booing in the stand. People sit at home and boo at their TVs. That's their right, but it's not like having fans in the stands. So, and I think overall, I mean, Steve said it very clearly last year. He didn't think it was fair to judge Jeff on the team's performance last year, given the lineup. I think something like 8 or 9 of the players who were on last year's team are no longer in the NHL. That's kind of telling. And again, this year, 1 week, again, less than 1 week into the season, they lose a fourth of their lineup to COVID. So, and the other thing is, does Gerard Gallant want to come coach the Red Wings? I mean, he's had some pretty nice NHL coaching gigs. Wings are not going to be out of this rebuild anytime soon.
But he did go to an expansion team, although they did better than expected. It was still an expansion team when he went there, though. Right.
No, and then the other thing, I mean, like, is there a risk involved with hiring a friend? I mean, there's that saying, coaches are hired to be fired, right? So, I mean, it's interesting to me, like, because he's had the opportunity now for more than a year. It's been more than a year since Gerard became available, right? So,
I know. See, that's my conspiracy theory right there. Why has he, a guy who I think is one of the best coaches in the league, hasn't got a job yet when there's all these jobs that have been available? So I'm guaranteeing you, this is it. Behind the scenes, they've got it all worked out. Steve and Gerard, they got it worked out.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
One of the questions I constantly get, Helene, about the Red Wings rebuild, because a lot of the folks follow the scouting community now, and so much is going on. So many people assess the drafts and prospects. Is Veleno a legitimate second line center, or is he a third line center? In other words, will he be able to score enough to hold that second line once he comes up? What have you heard about that, and where do they see Veleno fitting in? Because everyone believes he's going to be an NHL player. It's just how much he will score.
Yeah, they're really liking Robbie Fabry at that second line center position. He's really doing a good job. And I mean, he's been probably one of Steve's best moves, acquired in a trade for Jacob De La Rose, who was a guy the Wings claimed off waivers the previous season. So, he's consistently an offensive threat. He's really, and I think center was the position he played in juniors and coming up, and then kind of switched to winger. So they like Fabry at that position. I don't know that they think Veleno is ready to come in and challenge for the second line center position as soon as next season. He's playing in Sweden as well. He'll be there for the season. He's with Malmö, not as good a team as Rögle, which is where Seider is. So, maybe he comes over once the SHL season is over. But I think there's still some question mark there about where what his long-term fit is, whether it is as on the second or third line.
Steve Yzerman always got a lot of leeway there after the career he had with the Red Wings, but the Red Wing fans are used to having a lot of winning hockey teams over the last 20 years. Are they still pretty patient, understanding this is a rebuilding process?
Well, not on Twitter, but I'm not sure anybody should judge anything on Twitter. Yeah. It was, it was fun to me in writing the book, just going, remembering. I mean, I started covering them in the mid to late '90s when they started getting really, really good, and how successful they were, how much personality there was the team, now, but I mean, the organization knew these days were coming. The playoff streak, the contending years were extended because they happened to draft Datsyuk. But this is what you see in pro sports, right? And people should remember the 1970s. And I point out, even Steve Yzerman had to wait 14 years as a player to win the cup, and that was with the 1989 draft with Lidstrom and Fedorov and Konstantinov, which nobody will ever repeat, right? And it took 8 years after that draft. So I think I think deep down people are patient, but at the same time, it's absolutely, when you're used to seeing the team make the playoffs and be competitive, it's kind of like, well, but it's been 4 years. Why are they not back in it already?
Yeah. Well, Elaine, it's been a pleasure to have you today, and I hope everyone will go to Amazon.com and look for your book. If you're a Red Wings fan, it's a must read. We appreciate having you on, and I'm sure we'll talk to you later in the season.
Absolutely. Sounds
Elaine, good to see you again.
Likewise.
That's Elaine St. James of the Detroit Free Press, who's the beat writer for the Red Wings. And I think that's a pretty honest appraisal of where the Red Wings are at. I think people thought they would be a little bit farther down the road. But, when you're dealing with prospects, you can put timetables on them, but they don't always sort of fit the timetable. Everybody kind of develops at their own pace. And I think there is some legitimate concern about whether not all the optimism about Anthony Mantha was misplaced a little bit, because at 26, he should be established now. Right. And, we're still talking about the same issues with regard to consistency. And, he was benched, a healthy scratch, and it was all about, the not moving his feet. And, that's pretty standard stuff. Moving your feet is, junior hockey stuff. And
if by 26, if he hasn't figured out that he's got to have a better work ethic than that, that's troublesome.
Yeah. So I mean, and that what's so frustrating, I think, for the Red Wings and certainly for the fan base is you can see the potential in Mantha because he's got such a quick release and a snapshot. Like if he's in the offensive zone, he's a danger to score. He can just rip it from anywhere, and he's pretty effective at using, players as screens. Like, you could see him pause and wait to, that's for the traffic to sort of get in his way, and then he kind of, lets it fly toward the net. But, if he ever got it together, the idea of a line with Larkin and Mantha and Bertuzzi, because everything that Mantha isn't with regard to the work ethic and doing the right stuff and playing hard, Bertuzzi is. Bertuzzi doesn't have Mantha's talent, but he's always seems to be in the middle of every play, and he gets the most out of his talent. People say, well, he's not really a scorer, but he's scored everywhere he's been, including in the NHL. We didn't talk about this with Elaine, but the minute he went out with an injury is when the Red Wings really started to struggle. Like we didn't get into their power play, but they've only scored 4 power play goals. They've gone like 0 for 40 or something outrageous on their power play. And Tyler Bertuzzi has 3 of those 4 goals. So it's just amazing. I wanted to ask you, because there's been a lot of discussion too about this. One of the issues on the power play, well, there are many. One of them, they just can't get in the zone. And once they get in the zone, they can't handle the puck. But the one that I find the most perplexing is, and I don't know that anyone keeps this stat, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, I'll hear about it, but the number of shots each player has blocked. And I think that would be a worthwhile stat, particularly for point men on the power play.
Yep.
And I bring that up because, Hronek, who I think has played really well for them and has developed nicely for them. Although, as I said, one GM thought this season he sort of plateaued a little bit. And he seems like he's not getting better defensively, which I think everyone thought he would. Like, he's not bad defensively, but he's everyone thought he could get a little better. But he seems to always get his shot blocked. Dylan Larkin gets a lot of shots blocked. So I want to ask you, as a guy who played, there's an art to that, to be sure. Some guys are great at finding ways to get the puck on the net. So what's the key there? What do you got to do to get shots through?
Well, I think it's more the guys around him, the other guys on the ice. I mean, these are NHL guys, especially with Larkin. He's a smart offensive player. If he's shooting, he's getting blocked all the time. It's more, does he have anybody else to pass to? Like, if you watch Colorado's power play, to me, like, they've got one of the, I don't know the numbers, but just watching their power play, like, they attack. Like, when Nathan MacKinnon gets the puck, he attacks the box. He's looking for a pass or a shot, and he forces people to come to him. Right. So if everybody's saying, like, you watch Alex Ovechkin too, he's been doing it for years, the same shot, right? It's a one-time shot from over on the side. But I think it's the other people moving around. So as a defenseman or somebody killing the penalty in the defensive zone, the more people are making themselves available for scoring opportunities. Now, you can't just leave all the other guys alone when Nathan MacKinnon's on the ice and you just cover Nathan MacKinnon. Same thing with Alex Ovechkin. You have to respect those other players, but those players just can't be standing there. They've got to create opportunities, so they force people to them. Then you can get the puck to the Alex Ovechkins. To me, if I see a guy getting a shot blocked all the time that's as good as Larkin, the guys need to be moving. They need to create and get it to Larkin quick, and he's got to move it quick. So it's to me, and again, I haven't watched their power play as much, but that's my first reaction. Again, when it's a good enough player like Dylan Larkin is, that he's getting a shot blocked all the time.
Yeah, I actually put it in a column. If I were the Red Wings, I'd be calling Nick Lidstrom and ask him to come over from Sweden for about 3 weeks, and because he was great at it,
definitely
at figuring out how to do it. Now you got to have Nick Lidstrom's skill. I do understand that, but there are tricks that you can use. The little head fake, looking guys off, and then shooting the puck. And a lot of guys do that. I wanted to move on to some other subjects. I think we had touched on this on our last show, but I do enough of these now that I forget what I say to whom on what show. But I had brought up that I thought that I might have been wrong on my preseason assessment of the Devils. Like, I think in the preseason, I was pretty consistent when I said I like the direction they're heading. I think Tom Fitzgerald did a really nice job. I like the acquisitions that he made, particularly the Rem Murray acquisition. And Hughes worked hard in the offseason, and he's a better player.
Bigger player, too.
Yeah, and I know some people had predict the Devils might make a run at the playoffs, and I said, no way. They're not going to make the playoffs. That's where I was wrong in. But I want to be clear on this. I'm not suggesting they're going to make the playoffs. But what I'm suggesting is I'm not going to say that they're not going to make the playoffs.
I agree.
The point I'm going to make is I think they're more competitive than I thought they were going to be. And I think anyone who watched that game against the Capitals, because I thought the Capitals were vulnerable. You said before the season they were going to be vulnerable. I didn't think so, but having watched them, they are vulnerable, and they have some guys not playing well. And but they found a way to win that game. But that was a fun game. I enjoyed that game. Did you watch that?
Good. And you're right with Hughes. Like he's there. What a huge difference for Hughes from last year to this year. Part of it is I think he gained like 20 pounds too. Like really muscled himself up. But you watch him play, man. He is like really. I watched him last year, and you should know that it's just a young player. And he's having his rookie year. But I just didn't see his game at all. Everybody talked about how great he was. But man, you watch him. And I was like you. I watched him the weekend. He was really good. So no, I do like that team a lot. And I'm with you. I didn't think they'd come close to making the playoffs. And if they keep going the way they're going, they're going to take a run at it. Yeah.
Well, what? Why are we all guilty of that, Tom? I mean, you're a smart hockey guy. You've been around a long time. You know how this works.
Yep.
And yet, when we get a top draft pick, same thing is true of Kakko and with the New York Rangers. We just expect more. Lafreniere this season, even we expect more out of them then
Sure.
deep down we know that they can give. That, you
Yeah.
know, there's only one Connor McDavid, and
One
you know,
Austin
the guys,
Matthews,
the guys that can come up and just do it, you know, they're few and far between.
I
You know, and yet we set that bar so high, and our expectations are just ludicrous. And then
It is funny. You're
Yeah.
right. Like, why do we do that?
yeah, even though we know it deep down, we know it. You know, we talk about it all the time.
And I think back to myself when I was an 18-year-old, I was a freshman at Northern Michigan University, and I was a mudhead. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't understand anything. I think like socially, you know, on the ice, off the ice. So you're right. When you see Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews come in, and I mean this in a very good way, it's almost freakish that they are that mature on and off the ice. It's amazing that they do what they do. Nathan McKinnon, I talk about him all the time. It was 2, 3, 4 years before he became the real Nathan McKinnon that he is now, and he's arguably the best player in the National Hockey League. So I'm with you. It is funny that we laugh at it, like we say to ourselves, like I kind of discounted Hughes, right? I didn't say, okay, he's going to take a leap now in the next year.
No,
but that's true. It's funny.
Yeah, well, why is everybody so excited about this guy? You know,
Yeah.
but we know that too, and that's this thing why it's so you know, bothersome that we don't.
I've got to pop something up here. I'm going to do a little research here. Panarin taking leave from the New York Rangers. Did you hear this?
No.
Oh, I'll look this up here. Somebody had written earlier about the Larry Brooks wrote an article. I'm going to see if interesting.
Do they give any insight into why?
I'll see. I'm going to look it up here in the New York Post. Somebody mentioned before that Larry Brooks had written an article about it, so I'll see what he said. But here it is, right here. Antti Panarin taking Rangers leave of absence after Russian hit piece. Wow. Antti Panarin taking Rangers leave of absence after Russian hit piece. Wow. Taking a leave of absence from the team in wake of a political motivated article from Russia in which his former head coach alleges that the ex-forward of the Moscow region club beat an 18-year-old girl in Riga, Latvia. Oh, wow. All right. So we don't know. I mean, there's a claim then that this coach is saying that Panarin hit some 18-year-old girl. Again, we don't know the details of it, so I don't know if we want to.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Well, and then Larry Brooks also wrote an article about Mika Zibanejad and the tie to Jack Eichel on the weekend, too. Did you see that?
I did, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because, man, what a difference a season makes. You know, a year ago, you know, we're talking about Zibanejad taking a leap in his development. You know, a lot of people thought that he was as deserving of an MVP consideration as Panarin last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was so good. He was so impressive. And now I don't think he has an even strength goal. I think he's only got 4 points. There's a lot of talk that, you know, perhaps the COVID bout of COVID that he suffered is still having lingering effects, you know, kind of long haulers syndrome. And he just has not been the same player.
Yep. Well, and last year, top wasn't just the offensive part of his game. Like he was another Patrice Bergeron to me. He was like almost identical, and maybe in some ways even a little bit better. He's better offensively and a better skater, but his defensive game is fantastic too.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. When Panarin and Zibanejad were right before the break, man, when they were on the ice, they were always creating opportunities. And again, they were playing. Both of them played really good defensive hockey, good team hockey. So, yeah, I mean, we talked to Dave Maloney. We had that show on with him. And, you know, he obviously, you know, closer to the Rangers than I am. But it's like he says, yeah, the young kids are playing. It's the older guys that you count on to be the star players that are making the big money that aren't getting it done for them. So, but it's interesting, like the Jack Eichel thing. Like, do you think that he made a tie? If Larry Brooks made a tie in the New York Post, that it would be Jack Eichel, a trade, Zibanejad for Jack Eichel. Do you think Buffalo would trade Jack Eichel?
Well, they don't want to trade him. But
right.
I think you know, the Jack Eichel's personality is such that I think everyone believes that he's got a strong enough personality and will that he could will a trade. And you know, he has been clear that he hasn't been happy with the lack of progress the Sabres have made in creating a contending team. Like, you know, he's doing his part. I'm sure that's how he sees it. He has not verbalized it like this, but he has skated. He's had points. You know,
that's where you and I disagree, though. I think like you like him as a player.
I do.
It's not that I don't like him. I just think there's so much more to his game. I don't think he's playing the hockey that he can play. Like he's not He was drafted right behind. I know that's kind of unfair with Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews. I just believe those two players are way better than he's playing.
Well, they're way better than him, but
Yeah, but I mean,
but I mean, he's still. I mean, let's look at what he's done so far on a team that's been terrible. Call his stats up.
Yeah.
I
will. I'll look him up here. I guess when I watch him play, and maybe it's because of his skating style. He's kind of got this very relaxed skating style. Like he's not like he's working very hard. He kind of and maybe that's unfortunate for him because he is such a good skater. He gets the job done.
Yeah, he is a terrific skater. Yeah. I like him a lot, and I think he also has the personality that would fit well in Manhattan. This is a confident guy. Like he believes in himself, and he'll come right in, and he won't be intimidated by the bright lights of Madison Square Garden. Like I think he would be a good fit for the Rangers. But I like him, and I don't like I said, there's no thought that the Sabres want to trade him, but I think a lot of people believe that it just could happen.
Right. So he's got two. He's leading the team in scoring, but he's got 2 goals.
Yeah,
in 14 games. So I mean, it's not like that's the thing for me. I'm going, okay, if he's really that much of a leader or driven guy and everything, he's got 2 goals.
Yeah. I mean, the Sabres have been a disaster this year. So
yeah.
But they've been a disaster since he got there. What has his totals been since he's been there?
All right, career. All right. In his first season, he had 24 goals, 24 the second, 26 the second, 28 the second. He got up to 36 in this past season, but again, he's got 2 now. So
yeah,
I don't. So total points in his first season: 56 points in 81 games, 67 points in 61 games, 64 points in 67 games. 82 points in 77 games, and then 78 points in 68. So, I mean, he's okay, but he's
better than okay, Tom. I mean,
I guess again, you're right. That is correct. I'll back up on my statement. He is better than okay. I just look at his skill level, and I just think he should be much better than okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess so, but I think you'd see that if he were on a different team. But he's got Taylor Hall this year, so
right. So okay, so let's analyze this trade rumor then. So the Rangers make a decision. I'm not saying they have made this decision. If the Rangers get to the point where they say we've got to trade Mika Zibanejad, we've got to search around and see what we can get for him. They then say, okay, we'll trade him to Buffalo for Eichel. So it's going to be a lot more than just Zibanejad.
Yeah. There's no way Buffalo would make that trade.
Right.
So
it's Zibanejad, something else. But then if you're Buffalo, you're saying to yourself, okay, what are we getting in Zibanejad? I mean, are we getting the guy that played last year, or are we getting the guy that's playing this year?
No, I don't see that trade. I could see him going to the Rangers, but I don't think it would be a Zibanejad type,
right
player. What's crushing Buffalo is that Skinner has not been a player.
Yeah.
They got all that money tied up in him. Right. And it looks to me like the 40 goals was an aberration.
Well, that was a contract year too, right? And I hate to say that about a player, but a player plays great in a contract year, gets the big contract, and it doesn't put the work in after it. I mean, again, I don't know the kid. I hate saying that, but that's what it looks like. Yeah,
but he, he could probably be, with all the right circumstances, a 20-goal scorer, but he's not a big time scorer.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And that holds them back, because when you got that kind of money tied up, then you got holes elsewhere, and they haven't fixed the defense.
Yeah. All right. And before the show, we talked a little bit about the outdoor games we had this week, and obviously they had the long delay on the Saturday game. But like you and I were both saying, what do you? So, okay, first of all, it's a hockey game. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's really not that life-threatening.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it was beautiful to watch. I just thought it was, I joked with one of my friends, people have complained about Gary Bettman about everything known to man, but this is the first time they blamed him for the sun. Like the sun was out and there were no clouds, and it was Gary Bettman's fault. You know,
isn't it funny? You're right with Gary Bettman, because he took the game from, and it's not just all about money, I understand, but when he first started in the league, I think the revenues were like $750 million. Now, it obviously got hurt now because of the pandemic, but they were closing in on $5 billion. He's got the outdoor games, all the great stuff going on. I think he's done a fantastic job. And even from the business side, getting the agreement that he's got with the players where it's a 50-50 split now, much more profitable. He has some franchises that were in trouble financially, and he fixed those franchises up, or helped fix those franchises up. So he's done a lot of good things.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd say about this outdoor game, like, I thought it was picturesque. It was fun to watch. And for some reason, I love the camera angles. Like, they have some great camera angles, and I like the outdoor games. I get them. A lot of my colleagues have said, well, the novelty is worn off, but what they're not taking into account is, and now that wasn't the case for this one because of the lack of fans, but generally wherever they go, it's just a huge fan event, and people are excited to have them in their town and so forth. But I think there's still a good novelty, and I think it was kind of fun. And I don't know what the ratings were, but there was a lot of folks. I had a sense that there were a lot of people that were just tuning in just for the novelty of playing in Lake Tahoe. And I've said for years that we ought to go to some neutral sites and just tuck a hockey rink in some place in Alaska, or tuck a hockey rink in Vail, Colorado with the snow falling, or go to Lambeau Field and play on the frozen tundra in Green Bay. There's a lot of places. Central Park, just put up a rink in the middle of Central Park, and really sort of sell the romance of the game. I agree. Because it is, there's nothing more getting down to the roots of the game than playing an outdoor game.
Well, I was lucky. I can't remember how many years ago the Rangers played Philadelphia in the outdoor game down in Philly, and the day before they had the alumni game, outdoor game. And I remember when they asked us, we were all thinking like, it's going to be like 5,000 people in the building or whatever. We had 45,000 people for the alumni game, and it was unbelievable. And it's just an alumni game, didn't mean anything, but it was unbelievable to be a part of that. We were in the locker room before, and we were kind of laughing, like the Philly fans, especially with the Rangers, they hated us so much, they're yelling at us and all that stuff. And we're kind of laughing. They're not going to be yelling at us today, are they? I mean, it's an alumni game. It's an exhibition game. We walked out. There's a long walk from the locker room out to the ice, and they were laid low. You suck. Your dog sucks. Everybody.
It sucks.
Yeah, it was funny getting yelled at by the fans for an alumni game. It was pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. The Philadelphia, it's so tough they even booed Santa one year.
Yeah, that's right. 2 snowballs at him too. Yeah.
So anyway, well, we've probably gone too long, but we appreciate listening. If you want to read me, I'm at hockeybuzz.com. I also do a Tuesday, Thursday podcast at 4 p.m. with Bob Duff.
That's an excellent show too.
Yeah, hockeydebates.com. And Tom, tell everybody where we can pick.
And you can hear the radio version of this show on radio.co. Again, that's radio.co at 365 Sports. So you can hear it there too. And listen, that show with you and Bob Duff is excellent too. That's good. Anybody should listen to that one. It's good.
And we're going to have George Richards on, who is a fine writer who covers the Florida Panthers. I want to get into that Wednesday. I think we can say, Tom, they've been the biggest surprise of the season.
Definitely.
So just to give everyone I also write for a betting site, and at the start of the season, the Florida Panthers were at plus 4,700 to win the Stanley Cup, and they're at 2,300 now. So their odds have been cut in half. Based on, and say what you want, but bettors who are putting money on things, they do their homework. So if they believe in the Panthers, you can bet that there's something to them.
Joe Quenneville, a big part of that. Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll see everybody on Wednesday.